Hello and welcome back to Football Index Moneyball. I have another pick of the day for you today, and for this pick, I've stayed in the middle of the value range of the market and I've come up with a player who has a proven PB record with 5 separate PB wins over the last 3 years, and he's found himself in the media this season with wins on 6 occasions. Like all players on FI, he suffered from the dip in prices when football stopped, but he's not yet gained from the recent recovery in the market, which has left him at a great price, with the potential, if he does pick up dividends, to have a very high yield. Before we get going, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. If you want to follow me on Twitter, then you can search for @IndexMoneyball. And there's also referral links in the description if you want to sign up to Football Index, Football Index Edge and Football Index Club. There's also a link to my Patreon page where you can help to support the channel, which gives access to some bonus picks, portfolio reviews and other added benefits. The player I've gone for today is Granit Xhaka, a 27-year-old defensive midfielder from Switzerland who plays for Arsenal. Now, you probably all knew that and are well aware of Granit Xhaka, but if you're new to Football Index, I'm sure you weren't expecting me to say his name based on the introduction that he'd won 5 PBs. I usually tend to stay away from defensive midfielders as they score and assist much less than other midfielders, but they compete for the same dividends, which makes it difficult for them to win. But Xhaka and a couple of the other players that I'm going to use in profit target analysis today are the exceptions, and that's down to the massive amount of possession and dominant style of play of the teams, resulting in very high stats for passing, which can soon add up on FI and create what people refer to as a very strong base score, which basically means that they have a high average PB in games where they don't score or assist. So when these types of players do pop up with a goal or an assist, they usually are in with a good chance of taking down PB, especially on bronze and silver match days. The second point which I alluded to in the intro is that Xhaka's found himself in the media a lot this season due to the shirt throwing incident which resulted in him being stripped to the Arsenal captaincy. Before the season shut down, he looked to have regained his place in the team under new manager Mikel Arteta, but I think there's still potential for some links to moves away this summer off the back of the controversy. And actually, I was going to make this video yesterday, but then he was in the media. You can see on the right there's some stories that came out, so his price actually rose a little bit as well, which was a bit of a shame, but it did drop a couple of pence again this morning. If we take a look at Xhaka's 12-month price graph, we can see that he's currently at close to his 10-month low, down from a peak of £1.7 back in November. His peak price was around that time where he was winning lots of media, which can be a bit deceiving in terms of hopes that he can regain that price. But he did hit £1.5 again in January when speculation of a move away from Arsenal resurfaced. So I think if rumours were to start again in summer, this could have a positive effect on his price. On top of that, Xhaka is one of the first names on the team sheet for Switzerland, so should feature for them next summer in the Euros and possibly in the World Cup if they manage to qualify. This could lead to some extra game time for him if he's fit. Another thing that I wanted to show you just before we move on is his average PB per 90 and his average PB per game. So here you can see he's got 125 per 90 and 123 per game, and that's because he does play 90 minutes most often when he's playing. You can see he's had 36 appearances in the last year, none of them as a sub. He has been out of the team a little bit more since his incidents where he lost his captaincy, but I think if they're not going to play him regular, he's going to get sold. So either way, it's kind of a win-win for us. Taking a look at Xhaka's transfer marks, we can see that he has a good collection of trophies, including the FA Cup with Arsenal and an award for the Swiss Player of the Year in 2017. The rest of his trophies are from his time in Switzerland with Basel at the start of his career. For his career stats, he managed 407 games with 34 goals and 32 assists, which equates to a combined goal and assist rate of 0.18 per 90. Now, normally this lower tally from a midfielder would worry me, but with Xhaka's PB record, we already know he's capable of high scores despite this. For his positional data, he's played the majority of the games in defensive midfield and central midfield, but has also filled in at various other positions. For this type of player, versatility is not as much of a benefit, as if he were to get a transfer, he's more than likely going to be a major signing and should play in his preferred position wherever he ends up. But the one thing I would say is that in a lesser team, he could potentially play slightly further forward in central midfield, which would be beneficial for his goal and assist potential. In this table, I've compiled all of Xhaka's stats from his time at Arsenal, and here's where it starts to see the reason for his high PB base. The highlighted figures are all very positive for a player's PB score, and in particular his 80.5 passes per game over the 4 years is fantastic. I think this may be the highest average we've seen so far on a pick of the day. His defensive stats are also solid with 1.4 successful tackles, 1.7 clearances and 1.1 interceptions to go with his 1.3 key passes per game. His goals and assists per 90 are both quite low at 0.07 and 0.12, but we already knew that, and this was not going to be a strong point of his game. One thing that you could say is that 1.3 key passes, he could be a bit unlucky to have such low assist figures. But overall, I think this set of stats definitely adds to the case for Xhaka as a PB player who can pop up with big peaks PB scores when he does get a goal or an assist. For my profit target analysis, I've used all 27-year-old midfielders, but from a range of different positions and countries. For my comparable purchase options, I went for Jonas Hoffmann at Xhaka's old club Borussia Mönchengladbach and Manuel Lanzini at West Ham. Now the interesting thing about Lanzini is that I actually set out with the intention of using him for the next pick of the day, and when I was assessing the comparable purchase options, I noticed that Xhaka had fallen down to a similar price. So I did a comparison of the PB records of the two players along with Hoffmann, who's another player I've been keeping an eye on, and there was a clear winner. If we look at this extract from the Master Stats table on Football Index Edge, and if you haven't used Football Index Edge or seen it before, this is probably my favourite of the tables that they offer. And if you go through my link in the description, you can get a 2-week trial, and you'd also be helping me out because I'm an affiliate for that site. But you can see that Xhaka has the higher PB average and has won more PB and more media than both Hoffmann and Lanzini. On top of that, he's at a more prestigious club and he's a regular for a team who will be playing in the Euros next year. I'm going to stay on this table to talk through my target perch options as well for today's video, since the main thesis for this player is PB. So for my low target today, I went for Jesse Lingard at Man United. As you can see, Lingard's not won any matchday dividends yet. He has a much lower average PB score, peak PB score, and he's won less media. So to be honest, I can't really see any justification for why he costs more than Xhaka. And on top of that, he's lost his place in the side this season at United and could be on his way out this summer, with a lesser Premier League team the likely destination. Based on this, I would expect to see all three of my comparable purchase options up at this price the next time they kick a ball, really. For my mid-target, I went for Marco Verratti at PSG. Now, Verratti is actually a very similar player in FI terms to Xhaka, in that he has a pretty low goal and assist contribution, although slightly better than Xhaka with 0.25 versus 0.19. Both these players should feature in most games at the Euros, and both have very high PB bases. But again, Verratti is slightly better at 126 versus 113. But when it comes to actual PB wins, Xhaka has 18p versus Verratti's 8p. And Verratti has no media, so I think there is an argument that could be made for these players to be similar value in terms of future dividends. On top of that, the French League has just been cancelled, so although the Premier League might be cancelled as well, at this stage it looks like Xhaka would be the better purchase. I think to hit the price that Verratti's at now, Xhaka would have to get in a good run of games at Arsenal and post up some high PB scores, probably would need to win one maybe on a bronze or a silver day. With all the turmoil and him facing spells out of the team this season, he's not managed one win yet this year, which is probably part of the reason why he's dipped so much in price. Then for my high target, I've gone for Fred again at United. Fred has had a good year this year and has managed a couple of PB wins in the Europa League where United have faced some pretty weak competition. He has a very high peak PB score, but this was again in the Europa League. So when you factor it down, it actually almost comes to the same as Xhaka's with 280 versus 277. Fred's the only player who has won more media than Xhaka with 29p versus 14p. And Fred's actually coming fourth today in the media, so we could be in for another penny today. Fred's also the player who's second in terms of PB with 17p, and they've all come this season, so I think the price difference is justified here. But if Xhaka could have a better season next year and replicate his form from the 2018-19 where he managed 3 PB wins, I think he could reach this price with market growth factored in. On my profit target analysis table, I've also included a second line for Xhaka, which has a higher entry price in case when you watch this video is risen, and also includes some dividends with 3p for media from a second place or 3 1p wins from Media Madness, along with 8p and PB, which I think is reasonable if he plays regularly in the next 12 months, either for Arsenal or after a transfer. So that leaves us with profit target range of 14% for the low, 73% for the mid, and 111% for the high based on today's price, and no media, and 19% for the low, 74% for the mid, and 109% for the high if you assume the higher entry price and the dividend wins. I think that these targets are all very achievable, and I'm optimistic of the chances of Xhaka chipping in with some dividends in the next 12 months. I think at this stage the only major risk would be that he was to get an injury, as I think if Arsenal decide they don't want to keep him following his incident, then they'll sell him to a team that I'd be confident has European football, and if that was the case, he should maintain his PB threat. So that's all I have time for today. Again, if you're interested in some premium memberships to improve your trading, there's links to Football Index Club, Football Index Edge, and to my Patreon page in the description. Thanks for watching and good luck on the index.